Have you ever stopped to think about where the idea of you even comes from? The idea that you're an individual with your own thoughts and your own rights. What if I told you that idea was a radical invention? An idea so powerful it didn't just change philosophy, it actually toppled kings. Well, today we are diving deep into the revolutionary mind of John Locke, the guy who pretty much designed the modern self and laid the groundwork for democracy as we know it. Okay, let's just start with this quote, because, wow. In a world where everyone believed power flowed from God directly to the king, this one sentence was like a bomb going off. It flips the whole script. It says power doesn't come from up high, it comes from us, from our consent. This wasn't just a new idea, it was a direct challenge to every single monarch in Europe.
Right, so to really get how earth-shattering Locke's thinking was, we have to do a little time travel. We need to understand the world he was born into, this world of kings, and the massive problem he was trying to fix. You gotta remember, for pretty much all of history, the setup was simple. God chose the king, and the king ruled you. End of story. This wasn't just politics. It was considered the natural, divine order of the universe. You weren't a citizen with rights, you were a subject with obligations. And questioning the king, that was like questioning God himself.
And Locke, he lived smack in the middle of a political earthquake. England was just ripped apart by civil war. They literally executed their king, tried out a republic for a bit, then brought the monarchy back. This chaos wasn't just some background noise for Locke, it was everything. It's what pushed him to find a better, more stable, and more just way to set up a government.
So here's the really interesting part. Locke's big political revolution, it didn't start with governments or kings. Nope. It started somewhere much, much smaller and more personal, right inside the human mind. He had to completely change how we thought about ourselves first. At the time, the common wisdom, coming from guys like René Descartes, was that we're all born with certain ideas already baked in. Like we come pre-installed with some basic software. But Locke, he came along and said something completely different. He suggested that when we're born, our mind is a tabula rasa, which is just Latin for a blank slate. Think of it like a fresh, empty notebook. There's nothing written in it. No innate knowledge, no ideas from God, nothing. And this quote just nails it perfectly. So if the mind is just white paper, how does it get filled up with, well, with everything that makes you, you? Locke's answer is so simple, but so powerful. One word: experience. Everything we know, everything we believe, is written on that blank slate by our lives, by what we see, hear, and feel. And right there, that's the connection. That's when this philosophy idea becomes political dynamite. Because if we all start as blank slates, then nobody is born better than anyone else. No king is born with a special connection to God. No nobleman is naturally superior to a farmer. We all start at zero. And with that one idea, the entire argument for the divine right of kings just collapses. Okay, so if the idea of divine right is totally out the window, what do you build in its place? Well, for Locke, you start from the ground up, with all these free and equal people.
Locke asks us to imagine a time before any governments, which he called a state of nature. And no, he didn't think it was some chaotic, violent free-for-all. He actually saw it as a place of reason, where people were naturally guided by a moral code to not harm each other.
And in this natural state, every single person, just by virtue of being human, has three fundamental rights. They aren't given to you by a king, you just have them. The right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to property. They're built in.
Now, the state of nature isn't perfect, right? Someone could still try to violate your rights. So what do? We make a deal. Locke called it the social contract. We all agree to give up a tiny bit of our perfect freedom to create a government. But, and this is the crucial part, that government has one job, and one job only, to protect our rights. That's the whole point of it.
This all leads to a huge question, and maybe Locke's most radical idea of all. What happens if the very government you created to protect you turns against you?
Locke's answer is clear. If a government stops protecting your life, liberty, and property and starts taking them, then it's broken the deal. It's no longer a legitimate government. It's basically declared war on the very people it's supposed to serve. And this is the ultimate check on power. Locke argues that when that contract is broken, all the power snaps back to the people, and they have the right, even the duty, to resist that government, to change it, or to get rid of it entirely and start a new one. This is the ultimate safety valve for freedom. Now, these weren't just abstract ideas for university classrooms. Oh no, they were like sparks that lit a fire, a fire that would leap across the Atlantic Ocean and become the blueprint for an entire new country.
Let's fast forward almost 100 years, to the year 1776.
Does that sound familiar? It should. It's the U.S. Declaration of Independence. I mean, Thomas Jefferson is practically quoting John Locke here. The idea that we're all created equal, that we have rights that can't be taken away, that is pure Locke.
But wait a second. If you're paying close attention, you probably caught that little switcheroo. Locke famously said life, liberty, and property. Jefferson wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what's up with that? Is he just improving on Locke? Well, the real story is actually way cooler. It turns out Jefferson wasn't trying to replace Locke's idea at all. He was still borrowing from him. The phrase, the pursuit of happiness, yeah, that came from John Locke too. See, for Locke, the pursuit of happiness wasn't just about feeling good. It was about using our reason to figure out what leads to real, lasting fulfillment. And he believes that this very pursuit, this freedom to think for ourselves about what makes a good life, was the bedrock of all our other liberties. So Jefferson wasn't disagreeing with Locke. He was just swapping one brilliant Lockean idea for another. So you see how it all connects. It's this incredible chain of logic. We start as blank slates, which means we're all born equal. That equality means government can only exist if we agree to it. And we only agree to it as long as it protects our fundamental rights. From the inside of our minds to the structure of our nations, it's all Locke.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Locke's ideas were so powerful because they questioned the most basic, fundamental assumptions of his time. It really makes you wonder, what are the big, unquestioned ideas of our world? And what new ideas might be getting ready to challenge them? Thanks for joining this explainer.